Welcome to Souls Harbor Town Hall. We're going to discuss 3 topics tonight, but we're only going to videotape the first topic, which is a general discussion on addiction. And before I read the story of a famous person, what I want to do is, for our younger audience, because I've given this speech several times before, they didn't understand the concept of jaywalking. So let me explain what jaywalking is if you go to downtown Dallas and in the busy city streets, if you walk between the streets, in the middle of the streets, between parked cars, and then go across the street, that is considered jaywalking. They used to give tickets for it. I don't know if they still do that. The reason why it's very dangerous for pedestrians, people driving vehicles, it's very hard to see people between parked cars, and that's why you have crosswalks. So anyway, this story relates to a guy, pretty famous guy, and I see a few guys shaking their heads saying, yeah, they've heard this story before. So let me read you the story to you. This story is about an individual with a passion for jaywalking. He gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Up to this point, you label him as a fool, having weird ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him, and he's slightly injured several times in succession. You'd expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Presley is hit again, and this time he has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving truck breaks his arm. He tells he's decided to stop jaywalking for good, but in a few weeks, he breaks both of his legs. On through the year, the conduct continues, accompanied by continual promises to be careful or to keep off the street altogether. Finally, he can no longer work. His wife gets a divorce, and he's held up to ridicule. He tries every known means to get this jaywalking idea out of his head. He shuts himself up in a mental institution, hoping to change his ways. But the day he comes out of the crazy house, he races in front of a fire truck and he breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? Now you're saying to yourself, what does this have to do with recovery? You know, and because if we did this once, if we tried to cross a street in the middle of the street between parked cars and we almost got hit, we would quit it. It reminds me of when I was 5 years old and I got this crazy idea to get a butter knife and stick it in the electric outlet. And I actually did that and stuck the knife in it. I got sacked, and I knew from then on never to stick that butter knife in it. So you're going, well, why does this guy quit? Well, that jaywalking story is about us. It's about the drunks, it's about the drug addicts, it's about the pill poppers. Because that is our lives. We cannot stop. And we will keep continuing to do it over and over again. It was like one of my friends who died of alcoholism. I visited with a family member about a couple weeks after his funeral. And she said, I don't understand why he just couldn't stop. And that's the way the normal world looks at it. If you're crashing cars and losing jobs and doing all this crazy stuff, the real world, the non-alcoholic world out there and the non-drug addict world says, just stop. But this isn't a light switch which you turn on or off. This is a habit, this is a disease that has been going on for a long, long time. And just like that jaywalker who lost his wife, his job, his physical injury, we as drug addicts and alcoholics and pill poppers have the same consequences. And that's why I like using this illustration. I call it the Great Eraser. Because the further we go down in our addiction, things start disappearing or erasing from our lives. I've categorized this in 3 different areas. Of course, they could happen in different orders, but typically the last is the latter part of the addiction. But, you know, our job, because we'll be drunk or too high, and we may miss a few days, right? Then are making our house payments, right? And then we sell off our stereos, and then we're homeless. We're out in the streets in Dallas. Then, these are the tough ones. This is the relationship stuff. You know, our wives and girlfriends had enough. They're going, you know, you're coming in drunk every night or stoned. I can't have a relationship with it. Our own flesh and blood, our kids are saying, Dad, I can't hang with you anymore. You're being destructive towards me. Moms, dads, brothers, sisters, friends. And now we're alone. We don't have anybody. So we're alone, we're homeless, we're on the streets. And this is where it gets deadly. Because we've lost our self-esteem, lost our self-worth. We have no hope. We're looking at easy way, pseudocidal way out, and we lose our hope. And that's what the addiction does. And so how did we get that way? Well, there's two major components with our addiction. The first component is the allergy or the physical part of it. When we take that first drink, that first drug, that first pill, it causes us to want more and more and more. We can't stop at one. The normal person will say, I've had enough. But not the addict, not the alcoholic, not the pill popper. We want more and more and more. And we'll keep continuing to have more and more till we black out or something destructive happens. And we can continue this for nights, days, weeks, months, years, on it goes. So that's the physical part, the crave of the wanting it. The mental part is once you're off the pill, the drug, the alcohol, then that obsession, as they say in the big book, the phenomena of craving comes in. The phenomena of craving that says, I want it, I need it. I can't live without that drink or drug. And that thought appears in us constantly. It's hammered in. Boom, 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 boom. And so as we go in our first week of trying to stay clean and sober, we are just consumed with this thought of saying, I need it. You have to abstain from it all. The obsession of the mind is a very difficult one. I need it, I need it. So now how do we do it? How do we get rid of the physical allergies? Well, it's simple. The physical allergies is, you know, as they say, put a plug in the jug. Which means I can never take that drink, that drug, that pill. I can never do it. Because once I do it, the allergy kicks in and the craving, the mental obsession. So that's the physical part. We can never take that first drink, drug, or pill. And by the way, you can't say, I'm a drug addict and I'm okay with alcohol. Because the alcohol, I've seen the alcohol will lead to a drug, or I've seen cases where the drug addict becomes an alcoholic. So you have to abstain from it all. The obsession of the mind is a very difficult one because that craving is so intense. We had somebody here last week, and it's the summer right now in Dallas. We've had 40 days of over 100 degrees. At 4 o'clock, this kid from Waxahachie said, 21 years old, said, the craving's so much, I gotta leave. I talked him out of it for a while, but at 4 o'clock, he finally said, Brian, I'm out of here. He walked 40 miles for that drug, just so that he could get back to that addiction state that he was. It was 107 degrees out. That's how powerful this addiction is. So how do we get rid of it? The first thing we do is we talk to people like us, other alcoholics, other pill poppers, other drug addicts. And by that, we go to meetings, whether they're AA or NA. And then what we do is we get a sponsor and we start working the steps. And the most powerful step is the first one, which says we're powerless. We have no power over the alcohol, the drink, or the drug. So we work with the sponsor, we work with the steps, we go to meetings, and the really important part, which is my favorite saying in the big book of the AA on page 85, it says we get a daily reprieve, and I'm going to add, of our addiction, whether that's drug, pills, or alcohol. based on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. By that means is I have to already have a spiritual relationship with my higher power, which I call God. I have to have that. And the way I get that is praying, meditating, and reading Scripture. Because once I do that, then that peaceful feeling is inside of me. That peaceful feeling that the drug, the pill, the alcohol gave me, I've substituted that by God's grace. So that's the program. The thing about the obsessional mind I want to mention is this doesn't go away like poof, like Mary Poppins coming down and say, poof, the thing goes away. It is a gradual process. So your first week, you're craving the alcohol or the drugs intensely. Over a month period of sober time, it becomes less. 3 months, you may be thinking about it 3 or 4 times a day. A year, you may be thinking about it once or twice a week. 4 years, like me today, it's a fleeting thought once every 4 or 5 months. It comes in my head and gets the heck out of it. The last point I want to make is just because I am sober for 4 years or I knew this gal for 27 years, I can never, ever go back to the first drink, the drug, or the pill. A case in point is I knew a gal, 27 years of being sober. 27 years. So you figure she has this thing licked. She didn't. She went out or took a drink, and she was back to where she left off at 27 years, but worse, because this is a progressive disease. She was shaking, and it was very hard for her to maintain any long-term sobriety. By that I mean about 6 months or a year. She kept relapsing. That's how powerful this addiction is. So we have to work on first the physical craving, which says I can never drink again, never pop the pill or do the drug, and then the obsessional mind will take care of itself as long as I'm working the program. And that concludes the first topic.